Okay. Okay, this is the review for the midterm. We're going to go over the most important item on the review. So when in the first question, when they discuss what we call is the sampling technique. So the sampling technique, you can see four of them right here: convenient, systematic, stratified, and cluster. So what we want to do, we want to explain it first before we read the problem. Convenient is something within reach. Something like when you interview a student at a local community college. So it's very convenient to survey a student within that college instead of going somewhere else. A systematic when you actually do it in some kind of a pattern or some kind of a systematic each time. So you're selecting every second person. So that will be the selection right here. So then you move on and you select the second person again, and then you'll be selecting this person right here. Then you move on and you're selecting the second person. And so you can see there is a pattern in selecting this. That's why it's called systematic. In stratified, what you do first, you divide the population into different groups. And then after that, you go to each group and you select some out of each. You can select them all, but you also can select some. So the minute you actually went to each individual group and select from it, that will be called stratified. With cluster, let's go ahead and say that we divide the population again into a different group, and you went in and you select from either one group or two, but not the third one. This way it's look like it's clustered within those two area. It's like you're talking about you're going to interview 5 elementary school teachers. Therefore, I'm sure that maybe there is more than 5 elementary, but what you end up selecting 5 of them to be interviewed. Now, when we look at this question, the one that's given to us, what we have is a set of high school, and it's divided into 3 areas, which is the area of sophomore student, and then junior, and then senior. And what happened, total number right here is the 18, junior was 503, and senior was 396. What happened later on, you went and you select 30 from here, and 48 from here, and then 62 from here. So what you end up, you're selecting out of each group, therefore this will be a stratified. Now we move to the next question, and the next question now will be about discussing the two important word, which is quantitative versus qualitative. Qualitative is dealing with value. This is actually dealing with value. And this one will deal with how many, which is the cardinality of the number. So now, when we discuss the number of seats in a movie theater, number deal with how many, therefore it will be quantitative. It will be quantitative. So because it's dealing with how many. If you're discussing the color of the car, that will be value. If you're discussing the, let's say the patient situation, that would be quality because it depends on the patient situation. I read 500 pages out of the book. That will be actually quantitative because it shows how many pages I read. So now when we move to the next one, the next question is dealing with find the z-score. So what we want to do, we want to go in and underline what we're looking for. So if I actually pick this, I'll say find the z-score corresponding to what value. So let's go ahead and see if we can summarize that problem the way it's given to us. So it says the IQ test has a mean. So we're going to say the mean right here, which is the letter mu, is equal to 100. We have a standard deviation is equal to 15, and then it's an individual IQ score found, so X will be 120. So now we need to go back to the formula sheet to find out what is the formula for the z-score. The z-score is equal X minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. So now we need to fill the formula in. Z is equal X is 120, mean is 100, divided by the standard deviation, which is 15. So that's will be equal to 20 divided by 15, which is 1.33. Usually the z-value will have 2 decimal places, therefore the answer is 1.33. The next one is dealing with the graph. So we're trying to find the area. Sometimes they ask find the area, find the probability, and so on. So when we deal with this problem, we need to understand how the shape work in finding the area. One of them is if we have the graph is colored to the left, therefore that will be basically a table value, the way it's written inside the table. If it is colored on the right, after I find the table value, I'll say 1 minus. It's always, whenever it's on the right, is always 1 minus the table value, because that's what's left out of 1. If we have between 2 value, that would be z1, z2, which is a higher one, minus the first one when you find the table value. There is another graph actually also. What happens if we have 1 on this side? Let's call it z1. And then you have another one on this side, which is called z2. So to find the area right here, then that will be the total area, which is the area table value for z1 plus 1 minus table value for z2. So you find each value and then you add them. That's why it says the total. Now when we look at this one, this is between, meaning I have to subtract. So I'm going to say table value for z is equal to 2.11 and minus table value for z is equal negative 0.45. Now when we actually do this, if we go to the table value where you can read actually this is 2.1 and on the top 0.1, and when we talk about table value, we're talking about table 4, where actually it's the normal z distribution. So when we look at this one, we'll look at the value right here, and this value is 0.9826. So now if we look at z for negative 0.45, this value right here will be actually for this, it's going to be 0.3264, and the way we should look for that is the negative 0.4 and on the top is 0.05. So when you have those two values, which is the one we have here and the one we have here, we just have to subtract by saying 0.9826 minus 0.3264, and the answer should be 0.6562. That is the area of the shaded region. Now if you're using the calculator, which is CI83, you can click on second distribution, and then it will open a parenthesis for you. But first you click on number 2 and you open parenthesis, you type negative 10,000. Usually we type negative 10,000 because we need 4 decimal places, and then I'll type 2.11, and then when you hit enter, then it will give you the value, the first value, and do the same thing with the second distribution of number 2 of the second value, and that should give you this. Let me try to see if we can actually see it. I'm not really sure if we can access this at the same time. So if I have the calculator with me, then I will do second distribution, and we said go to number 2, and then from number 2 we could put 10,000, negative 10,000. So go back and put negative 10,000, comma, and then we put 2.11. When you click enter, you will end up with the value we asked for, which is that what we have on the screen. Now we do the same thing, second distribution, number 2, and then we type negative 10,000, and we put comma, and then we put the negative 0.45. You'll see that's the second value. Therefore, you just have to subtract 4 decimal places when you round them correct. Now, let's look at the next problem. So actually, if you subtract, what you end up with? We said we end up with this. So try this on the calculator and see if you end up with the same answer. So you could do it either way, with the calculator or with the table, so you can do it correctly. Now, it says in number 5, again, let's look at the problem. It says class width, class midpoint, and class boundary. So if we define them on the side, and usually look and see what class they're talking about. It's very important because it could be a second, third, or fourth class. So what we're going to do is, first let's define the width. The width is usually given to us is lower of the second class minus lower of the first class. You could also do upper, but it depends. What we mean lower, this is the lower bar and this is the lower bar. So if I go to the first one, I say 50 minus 53 minus 50, and that will be equal to 3. We're actually over here, we're doing the first class. I'm sorry, I'll put the lower of the second class. This is your second class minus the lower of the first class. So that's how we find the class width. And class width, it doesn't matter, it goes in either direction. You could use the upper, which is that's 53, and that's 52. If you subtract them, you end up with 2. Any of the 2, when you subtract them, you should end up with 3. Now, notice these two. See this? This is 59, this is 56. The difference is 3. So class width will be fixed. Now, what we have next is the midpoint. And to find the midpoint, we always do the lower of the class plus the upper of the class, and we divide the answer by 2. So we're looking at class is the first class. So we have a 50. We have 50. What do we have for the upper class? We have 52. And we divide that by 2. We end up with 51. That will be the midpoint of the class. Now, we look at the boundary now. What's the boundary? How we can find the boundary? The boundaries, usually we add and subtract 0.5. So it's what we basically do You see negative 0.5 from the lower of the class, since we're talking about the first class, and then we add 0.5 to the upper bound of the also first class. So now what we mean right here by, if you look at the first class, that's 50. So I'm going to subtract 0.5, that's what we're saying, and that will give me 49.5. So we go to the upper class, which is 52. We add 0.5, we get 52.5. So actually, if you think about the boundary for us is 49.5 all the way to 52.5. So adding and subtracting 0.5 from the lower and the upper bound.